Captain Jake Morrison had been staring into the void for 3 long hours when the signal struck the UES Intrepid like a sudden blow to the chest. The bridge went deathly silent as alien glyphs cascaded across every monitor, accompanied by a piercing sound that made crew members clutch their heads in agony. Jake slammed his fist down on the emergency cutoff, but it was too late. The damage was done. Every officer on the bridge had heard it, the anguished cry that seemed to echo from the bowels of some infernal nightmare. "What the hell was that?" whispered Navigator Betty Walsh, her face as pale as starlight. She had spent 15 years on exploration vessels and had never encountered anything remotely like this. The alien equations still shimmered on her display, pulsing rhythmically like a failing heartbeat. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow and turned to his communications officer. "Tony, can you make any sense of this?" Communications officer Tony Rodriguez nodded slowly, fingers flying over his console. "Sir, it's definitely artificial. The signal originates near the Kepler system, about 43 light-years from Earth. The mathematics are complex, but I think I can decode it." For the next 2 hours, Tony worked tirelessly on the alien transmission, while Jake paced the bridge like a predator trapped in a cage. The Intrepid was humanity's most advanced exploration ship, outfitted with Earth's finest technology, but nothing in their experience had prepared them for this. Around the bridge, murmurs of fear and exhilaration rippled quietly among the crew. Finally, Tony looked up, his expression grim. "Captain, I've translated it, and you're not going to like this." Jake stepped behind Tony's chair. "Read it." Tony's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly as he read from the display. "To anyone receiving this transmission, we are the Viney of Kepler Prime. Our world is dying. An enemy we call the Devourers has invaded our system. They consume everything, life, matter, all we have built over millennia. We have fought them for 6 months, but we are losing. They adapt to every tactic, learn from every battle. Our population was 12 billion. Now fewer than 8 billion remain, and the number declines daily. We do not know if anyone will receive this message, but if you do, please help us. We do not want to die. Our children do not want to die. Coordinates follow this message. Time is running out." Silence fell again. Jake's stomach churned as he absorbed the enormity of the plea. 12 billion souls, an entire civilization screaming across the void. He glanced at his crew and saw the same horror mirrored in their faces. "Sir," said Science Officer Linda Carter, "should we contact Earth Command?" Jake nodded slowly. "Yes. Send everything we have to Admiral Lisa Carter immediately. Mark it Priority 1. Within 6 hours, the transmission had reached Earth's Sol Defense Command Center, deep within Colorado's mountains. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the main displays. She was tall, her gray hair and battle-worn eyes marking decades of experience. Yet her voice remained steady as she addressed the emergency. "Council, ladies and gentlemen, what we face is both a first contact scenario and a potential threat to Earth itself," she began, her words resonating through the vast chamber. "The transmission comes from an alien civilization under assault by a force they call the Devourers." General Pete Hammond, his face scarred from the Mars Rebellion, leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, with respect, we have 37 ships in our entire fleet. Most are exploration vessels like the Intrepid. We're talking about traveling 43 light-years to confront an unknown enemy that has already annihilated an entire civilization." Admiral Carter faced him calmly. "Pete, I understand your concerns, but we must consider the bigger picture." Commander Amy Rodriguez, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, rose from her seat at the far end of the table. Young for her rank, barely 35, her expertise in alien life was unmatched. "General Hammond, I've been analyzing the transmission for the past 4 hours. The Devourers aren't merely conquering worlds, they're consuming them completely. According to Veni data, they strip planets of all biological and mineral resources before moving on. She activated a holographic projection of the Kepler system and neighboring star systems. If they finish Kepler Prime, they'll need new resources. The next closest life-bearing system is 12 light-years away, and the path continues directly toward our sector. Nervous murmurs rippled through the room as the implications sank in. Admiral Carter raised a hand for silence. We have two options. We can stay on Earth and hope the Devourers never find us, or we can confront the threat now while we still have allies to fight alongside. Secretary of Defense Carol Wilson, an elderly stateswoman with 40 years of service, spoke from her seat at the head of the table. Admiral, what makes you think these beings would be allies? We know nothing beyond their losing war. That's exactly why they'll be allies, replied Carter. Desperate people make the most loyal friends. They have nothing left to lose. Dr. Kevin Liu, the fleet's senior scientist, had been quietly studying the alien mathematics throughout the meeting. Now he looked up, eyes troubled. Admiral, they're unlike anything we've seen. The Vini transmission included technical data on the Devourers. They're neither fully biological nor fully mechanical. A hybrid. They adapt to weapons and tactics at terrifying speed. General Hammond stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. So, we're meant to fight an enemy that adapts to everything we throw at it. Our ships weren't designed for this kind of warfare. They were designed by humans, Admiral Carter said firmly. Humans are unpredictable. Every other species likely fights in logical patterns. We've never been logical when it comes to warfare. The debate raged another 2 hours, yet the outcome was clear. Humanity had endured ice ages, world wars, and the colonization of hostile planets by refusing to yield to impossible odds. This distress call would be answered. As the emergency session ended, Admiral Carter lingered, staring at the star chart, plotting the route to Kepler Prime. In 72 hours, humanity would launch its first interstellar military campaign, 37 ships against an enemy that had consumed multiple worlds. The odds were grim, but humans had never let that stop them. The launch bay at Luna Station buzzed with activity as thousands prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Admiral Carter watched from the observation deck of the UEE's Freedom as supply ships loaded the last of the ammunition and medical stores. The colossal dreadnought stretched nearly 2 kilometers, its hull bristling with weapons untested in combat. Captain Dan Rivers approached, uniform crisp despite the early hour. He commanded the UES Ghost, humanity's most advanced stealth ship, and his crew had volunteered for the deadliest missions. Admiral, all ships report ready. Task Force Liberty is assembled, awaiting your orders. Lisa nodded, gazing at the fleet poised to carry humanity into the unknown. 37 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble frigates, each carrying the hopes and fears of 8 billion Earthlings. Dan, are your crews prepared for what we might encounter out there? As ready as anyone can be for monsters from nightmares, Dan replied grimly. We've run combat simulations for a week. We understand the risks. The journey to Kepler Prime would take 18 days through hyperspace, 18 days to prepare for a battle that could decide the fate of human civilization. As the fleet entered hyperspace, work intensified. Each ship became a floating laboratory. Scientists and engineers labored around the clock to comprehend their enemy. Dr. Kevin Liu scarcely slept during the first week, his laboratory aboard the Freedom filled with holographic displays of Devourer technology retrieved from previous battlefields. The alien biomechanical components defied all known engineering and biology. Incredible, he told his assistant, Dr. Nancy Green, examining a fragment of Devourer armor plating. This material is alive, yet metallic as well. It can repair itself, adapt to extreme temperatures, and seemingly learn to counter weapons, Kevin explained. I've never seen anything remotely like it. Nancy peered through her microscope, pale and focused. Kevin, look at the cellular structure. This isn't random adaptation. There's an intelligence guiding these changes. They're thinking. Meanwhile, aboard the carrier UES Yorktown, Lieutenant Commander Sharon Blake put her fighter pilots through relentless combat drills. The hangar echoed with engine roars and shouted commands as pilots climbed in and out of their cockpits, running attack patterns designed to keep them alive in the coming fight. Listen up, Sharon addressed her squadron gathered around a holographic display. These devourers aren't anything we've faced before. They adapt in real time. Every engagement must be different from the last. Forget everything you learned in training about standard attack patterns. Pilot Jake Wilson raised his hand. Commander, how do we fight an enemy that adapts to everything? We do, Sharon smiled grimly. We stay unpredictable. We improvise. We fight like humans. On the engineering decks of every ship, teams of mechanics and technicians worked tirelessly to modify human technology for alien combat. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez aboard the Freedom was obsessed with adapting weapons to counter biomechanical foes. Our systems were built to fight humans, he explained to his team. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, explosives, they're insufficient. These devourers are part machine, part living tissue. We need weapons that strike both simultaneously. Day and night, his team developed new munitions, combining electromagnetic pulses with biological toxins. Ship sensors were upgraded to detect mechanical signatures and life forms alike. Every innovation was shared across the fleet via secure channels. As the fleet pressed deeper into space, reconnaissance probes were launched ahead. The intelligence returned was grim. Long-range sensors detected massive energy emissions around Kepler Prime, along with debris fields where space stations and defensive platforms had once stood. Captain Sue Palmer of the destroyer UES Wildfire reviewed the data when her science officer delivered troubling news. Captain, based on debris distribution and composition, I estimate Kepler had at least 50 defensive platforms before the Devourers arrived. Now they're all gone. Sue's heart sank. 50 platforms destroyed. The Vani had possessed formidable defenses. If they couldn't stop the Devourers, what chance did humanity have? Similar discussions unfolded fleet-wide as the enormity of their mission became clear. They were heading into battle against an enemy that had already crushed a technologically advanced civilization. 6 months of fighting, and the Devourers were still advancing. Yet Admiral Carter refused to let doubt take hold. She personally visited every ship, speaking with officers and crew, reminding them of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Her message was constant. Humans survive by confronting impossible odds and innovating to prevail. During the fleet's second week in transit, the first large-scale combat exercise was conducted. All 37 ships engaged in mock battles, testing coordination, communication, and strategy. The exercise highlighted both strengths and vulnerabilities in human tactics. Commander Rita Stone, leading the Marine contingent aboard the troop transport UES Ranger, observed the exercise from her ship's observation deck. Her Marines would handle any ground operations, and she understood that fighting the Devourers on their planet would be unlike anything in human military history. Sergeant, ensure your people are ready for anything, she instructed her senior. NCO, we may fight in environments that shift around us. These Devourers alter everything they touch. As the fleet approached Kepler Prime, tensions surged aboard every vessel. Crew members checked equipment repeatedly. Pilots ran final simulations. Engineers performed last-minute modifications to weapons and shields. Everyone knew that in a few short days, the true test of humanity would begin. Hours from now, they would face an enemy unlike anything humanity had ever known. The final probe reports arrived just as the fleet prepared to exit hyperspace. Kepler Prime was barely clinging to life. Its surface was marred by vast, dark scars where the Devourers had stripped entire continents. Hundreds of alien ships swarmed the planet, engaged in desperate combat with the biomechanical invaders. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UEES Freedom as the countdown began. In 60 seconds, Task Force Liberty would drop out of hyperspace, announcing humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. What happened next could determine if humans became heroes, or just another species devoured by the darkness between stars. The sight that greeted Task Force Liberty was beyond anything the crews had imagined, even in their worst nightmares. Kepler Prime floated like a dying ember, its once blue surface now covered in writhing black tendrils pulsing with sickly green light. Colossal biomechanical harvesters, each the size of a city, crawled across the planet like metallic spiders, consuming everything in their path. Admiral Carter froze on the bridge as her tactical officer called out contact reports. "Admiral, over 300 alien vessels in combat formation around the planet. Energy signatures indicate multiple species, all engaged with devourer forces." But it was the devourers themselves that struck seasoned veterans silent. Their biomechanical ships defied every law of physics and engineering known to humanity. They flowed through space like living organisms, hulls rippling with a strange fusion of muscle and metal. Some were massive, kilometers long, their tentacle-like appendages snaring smaller vessels. Others darted between alien defenders like predatory fish. Captain Dan Rivers aboard the stealth ship UEES Ghost was the first to notice the alien fleet's response. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple hails from the defending ships. Most do not sound friendly." The main screen flickered as the first alien transmission appeared. A towering insectoid creature with 4 arms and razor-sharp claws stepped forward, mandibles clicking. The universal translator struggled before producing a harsh mechanical voice. "Unknown vessels, you are in a combat zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. I am Commander Zaktar of the Catherine Battlecruiser Vengeance. We do not have time for curious newcomers." Admiral Carter stepped forward, voice calm despite the chaos outside. "Commander Zaktar, this is Admiral Lisa Carter of Human Fleet Task Force Liberty. We received a distress call from the Vani and have come to assist in their defense." The alien's forelegs rose in what might have been surprise. "Humans, your species is unknown. 37 small vessels against an enemy that has consumed dozens of worlds. You will be slaughtered within minutes." Before Carter could reply, another transmission cut through, from a vessel dwarfing even the human dreadnought. Its speaker appeared carved from living stone, glowing red eyes staring from a massive frame, voice rumbling like an earthquake. "I am War Chief Brundar of the Goron Fleet. Small humans, your courage honors you, but your ships are toys compared to our weapons. We have fought the Devourers for 3 months and barely hold them back. What can your tiny fleet accomplish, Admiral?" Carter opened her mouth, but a third voice intervened, softer and melodic, appearing as shifting bands of colored energy. "War Chief, perhaps we should not dismiss these humans so quickly. I am Fleet Admiral Toron of the Drakor Hegemony. My tactical analysis suggests their ship designs show unusual innovation. Their defenses seem built for prolonged combat, not quick victories." The alien debate was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the planet's surface. Dr. Nia, a Vani scientist, appeared on screen, her blue-scaled face marked by fear and exhaustion. "To all vessels in the defense fleet, this is Dr. Nia from Emergency Command Bunker 7. Our planetary shields will fail within 14 hours. The Devourers have adapted to every defense we've attempted. We estimate 8 billion Vani remain alive, but the number decreases by thousands every hour." The transmission cut to images from the planet's surface that made even hardened soldiers look away. Entire cities were consumed by mechanical tentacles, sifting through debris like ravenous fingers. What had once been forests and oceans had become gray wastelands, overrun with pulsing biomechanical growth. Admiral Carter felt her resolve harden as she watched humanity's first contact with alien civilizations unfold amid desperate battle. All alien commanders, I request an immediate war council to coordinate our efforts. We may be newcomers, but we have ideas that could help. Commander Zakhtar's mandibles clicked, producing a sound that resembled laughter. Ideas? The Devourers have heard every idea the galaxy can produce. They adapt to everything, learn from every attack, and turn our technologies against us. Then maybe it's time for ideas they haven't heard before, Carter replied firmly. 2 hours later, representatives from the human fleet walked aboard the massive Catherine flagship, navigating corridors built for beings twice their size. The War Council chamber was filled with creatures drawn from humanity's darkest myths and legends. The kit car resembled giant mantises with weapons, grafted to their limbs. Luminals were beings of pure energy, communicating through patterns of light that hurt the eyes to observe. The Goran were living mountains of stone and metal, their voices making the deck plates vibrate. Admiral Carter took her place at a table designed for beings 3 times her height, flanked by Captain Rivers and Dr. Kevin Liu. Alien commanders studied the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. War Chief Brundar spoke first, massive hands gesturing toward tactical displays showing the battle around Kepler Prime. Humans, we have lost 47 ships in the past month. The Devourers adapt to our weapons, learn our tactics, and turn our own technology against us. They are perfect predators, evolved over millions of years to consume entire civilizations. Dr. Liu leaned forward, analyzing the alien data. With respect, War Chief, nothing is perfect. Evolution always creates weaknesses alongside strengths. The Devourers may be efficient predators, but that efficiency could also be their undoing. Fleet Admiral Tehran's energy form shifted to curious blue patterns. Explain this theory, human scientist, Liu continued. Every adaptation requires energy and time. The Devourers fight multiple species simultaneously, each using different technologies and tactics. They are probably operating at maximum capacity just to maintain their adaptive systems. If we could overload those systems, Commander Zakhtar interrupted with a harsh laugh. Overload them? How, small human? We've tried every combination of weapons and strategies known to galactic warfare. Admiral Carter smiled for the first time since arriving at Kepler Prime. Commander, that's exactly the problem. You've tried every combination known to galactic warfare, but you haven't tried human warfare. We don't fight like everyone else because we aren't like everyone else. The War Council had been arguing for 3 hours when Carter finally stood and slammed her hand on the massive table. The sound echoed like a gunshot, causing several commanders to reach for weapons. Enough, Carter said, her voice cutting through the multilingual chaos. While we debate, 8 billion are dying on that planet. War Chief Brundar, you said the Devourers adapt to everything. Commander Zakhtar, you said they learn from every attack. Fleet Admiral Tehran, your analysis shows they turn our technologies against us, but none of you have asked the right question. The massive Goran war chief leaned forward, stone-like features showing interest. What question is that, small human? What happens when they encounter something that cannot be adapted to because it makes no logical sense? Carter replied. Dr. Liu, show them the analysis. Dr. Kevin Liu activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The projection showed human brain scans alongside alien neural patterns, highlighting differences in decision-making. Every species here thinks logically, Liu began, voice steady despite the intimidating company. Your military tactics follow predictable patterns based on mathematics, physics, and strategic optimization. The Devourers have had millions of years to adapt to logical thinking. Commander Zakhtar's mandibles clicked impatiently. Human scientist, all intelligent life thinks logically. How else would civilizations develop technology and space flight? Liu switched the display to human historical battles. Commander, Humans often make decisions that defy logic. We charge into battles we cannot win, sacrifice strategic advantages for emotional reasons, and make tactical choices based on intuition rather than calculation. The Devourers have never encountered a species that fights with organized chaos. The chamber fell silent as the alien commanders absorbed this revelation. Fleet Admiral Tehran's energy form shifted through several color patterns before settling on a deep purple, signaling intense contemplation. You propose to defeat a perfectly adaptive enemy by being imperfectly unpredictable, the Draymore leader said at last. It is either brilliant or completely insane. In human warfare, those two things are often the same, Admiral Sao. Carter replied with a grim smile. What followed was the most unusual military planning session in galactic history. Human officers collaborated with alien commanders to devise strategies that defied every principle of logical warfare. Captain Dan Rivers suggested using stealth ships to carry out seemingly random strikes on non-critical Devourer targets. Lieutenant Commander Sharon Blake proposed fighter squadrons that would change tactics mid-battle based on pilots' emotional responses rather than purely tactical calculations. But it was Chief Engineer Paul Martinez who delivered the breakthrough that changed everything. He had been analyzing Devourer adaptation patterns for weeks, tracking their responses to different weapons and maneuvers. "Admiral, I think I found their weakness," he announced, voice crackling across the UEE's freedom comms. "The Devourers don't just adapt, they predict. Their neural networks run millions of tactical calculations to anticipate our moves. Human decision-making doesn't follow predictable patterns." Dr. Liu leaned forward, mind racing. "Paul, are you suggesting their prediction systems could fail when confronted with truly random tactical choices?" "Not random," Martinez corrected. "Random still follows statistical patterns they could eventually anticipate. I mean emotional decisions, instinctive reactions, choices that make sense to humans but appear insane to a calculating machine." War Chief Brundar's massive fist slammed onto the table, shaking the chamber. "You intend to win this war by fighting like madmen?" "No," Admiral Carter said firmly. "We intend to win by fighting like humans." The plan that emerged was unprecedented. The alien Deathworlder Armada would provide covering fire, while the human fleet executed what seemed like a series of suicidal assaults against the Devourer formation. Each human ship would act independently, captains empowered to make tactical decisions based on intuition rather than conventional strategy. Colonel Rita Stone, commanding the Marine contingent aboard the UES Ranger, volunteered her forces for the riskiest portion of the operation. While space battles raged overhead, her Marines would mount the first ground assault of the conflict, landing directly on Kepler Prime to establish forward bases among the surviving Vani. "Colonel, this is madness," Commander Zakhtar protested, over comms. "No ground force can survive there. The Devourers transform everything into hostile terrain." Rita's voice remained steady. "Commander, my Marines are trained for environments from Arctic ice to molten rock. We'll adapt to whatever these creatures throw at us." As the War Council adjourned and commanders returned to their ships, Dr. Nalaya's voice crackled over emergency communications from the planet. "All Devourer ground forces are approaching Emergency Bunker 7. We estimate 6 hours before our final defensive position is overrun." The countdown had begun. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Freedom, watching human and alien ships take position around Kepler Prime. The Devourer fleet seemed to sense the tactical shift, their biomechanical vessels adjusting formation in response to the new, unpredictable threat. Captain Sue Palmer, aboard the destroyer UES Wildfire, was the first to receive her orders. Her mission was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Ram her ship through the center of the Devourer formation, firing at anything that moved, then teleport her crew to safety at the last possible moment. "Admiral, are you sure about this?" Sue asked over the private command channel. My ship will be destroyed, and there's no guarantee the teleporter will work with all that biomechanical interference. Carter's response was immediate. Sue, I'm not sure about anything except that conventional tactics haven't worked for 3 months. It's time to show these devourers what humans do when we're backed into a corner. Across the fleet, similar conversations unfolded as captains received orders that defied every lesson from military academy. Attack patterns based on childhood games, weapon targeting determined by crew members' favorite colors, formation flying, inspired by ancient Earth fighter traditions rather than modern tactical doctrine. The alien commanders watched in fascination and horror as the human fleet surged toward the Devourer formation. War Chief Brundar's massive dreadnought moved into position to provide covering fire, while Commander Zakhtar's precision strike vessels prepared to exploit any weaknesses the human assault might create. Fleet Admiral Tehran transmitted to Admiral Carter. Your species may be completely insane, but if this works, it will revolutionize warfare throughout the galaxy. Carter replied calmly, and if it doesn't work, at least we'll go down fighting like humans. The Battle of Kepler Prime began at exactly 14:30 ship time when Captain Sue Palmer screamed for Earth and glory into her communicator and drove the UEE's Wildfire straight into the heart of the Devourer formation. Her destroyer twisted like a dancing leaf, weaving between biomechanical tentacles the size of skyscrapers, firing every weapon at targets chosen by her gunners based on which ones looked the ugliest. The Devourers responded immediately and terrifyingly. Massive biohips turned to intercept the apparently suicidal human vessel, their adaptive armor shifting to counter expected attack patterns. But Sue Palmer wasn't following any pattern at all. She rolled her ship upside down and fired at a Devourer harvester simply because her navigator said it reminded him of his ex-wife's mother. Admiral Lisa Carter watched from the bridge of the UEE's Freedom as her tactical display lit up with chaos spreading through the Devourer fleet. All ships, execute Plan Madness. I repeat, execute Plan Madness, she ordered across the human fleet. 36 other captains threw their rulebooks into the airlock and began the most insane military assault in history. Captain Jake Morrison of the UEES Intrepid attacked, in a zigzag pattern inspired by his daughter's dance recital. Commander Betty Walsh of the frigate UEE's Defiant selected targets by closing her eyes and pointing at her screen. Every human ship moved in ways that defied military logic, but made perfect sense to the humans aboard. The Devourers had never seen anything like it. Their adaptive neural networks, designed to predict and counter logical tactics, began to experience what could only be described as mechanical confusion. Biomechanical vessels that had learned to counter every known weapon system found themselves unable to anticipate where the next human attack would come from. Lieutenant Commander Sharon Blake led her fighter squadron in the playground maneuver, having pilots fly in patterns inspired by childhood games like tag and hide and seek. Her fighters darted through Devourer formations in an elaborate game of follow the leader, constantly changing rules mid-flight. "Red Squadron, let's play Simon Says," Sharon called over the radio as her fighter executed a barrel roll serving. No tactical purpose beyond feeling right. Simon Says, attack the big ugly one on the left. Simon Says, ignore the small pretty ones. Simon Says, somebody sing a song while we blow things up. Pilot Jake Wilson's voice crackled through the radio as he opened fire on a Devourer scout ship. How about that old song about the battle hymn, Commander? Soon, the entire squadron was singing as they fought, their voices forming a chaotic harmony that somehow coordinated their attacks better than any tactical computer could. Devourer interceptors trying to engage them found their targeting systems unable to lock onto fighters literally dancing through space. Meanwhile, Colonel Rita Stone had launched the most audacious ground assault in military history. Her drop. Pods screamed through Kepler Prime's atmosphere like falling stars, scattering across the planet's ravaged surface. Marines fought in landscapes that shifted as the Devourers tried to adapt to their presence. "Sergeant Lopez, Take your squad and secure that hill that looks like a giant mushroom, Rita commanded over suit comms, firing at a biomechanical crawler the size of a tank. Private Johnson, plant charges on anything that moves funny. The Devourers had never faced ground troops before. Their adaptation systems, designed for orbital bombardments and energy weapons, struggled against Marines who shot first, asked questions later, and when in doubt, used more explosives. The turning point came when Chief Engineer Paul Martinez aboard the UEES Freedom made a breakthrough. Monitoring Devourer fleet responses, he noticed what alien commanders had missed. "Admiral, the Devourers aren't just confused by our tactics," he reported excitedly. "Their neural networks are overloading. They're trying to process so many unpredictable variables they're burning out their own systems." Dr. Kevin Lau, analyzing data from his lab, confirmed it. Paul's right. Devourers adapted to logical warfare with sophisticated prediction algorithms, but chaotic human decision-making turns those algorithms into liabilities. They're literally thinking themselves to death. Admiral Carter felt hope surge for the first time since arriving at Kepler Prime. "All human vessels maintain current attack patterns. Do not, I repeat, do not start making logical tactical decisions. Keep being human." The alien Deathworlder Armada, witnessing the human assault, began to understand. War Chief Brundar's massive dreadnought advanced to support the chaotic human. "Attack, targeting Devourer ships too confused to defend properly." "Incredible," Fleet Admiral Tehran transmitted. "Humans are winning through pure insanity. All Draymore vessels, support them. Target any Devourer ship attempting to adapt." Commander Zakhtar's battlecruiser Vengeance unleashed full firepower on a Devourer bioship that had frozen, systems overloaded trying to predict the nearby human destroyer. "I've never seen anything like this," he clicked over comms. "Humans fight like they're insane." "Maybe we are," Admiral Carter replied with a laugh, watching the tactical display as Devourer ships began retreating. "But it's working." The withdrawal grew from hesitant to full scale as Devourer vessels across the system found their adaptation systems failing. Biomechanical ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years fled from 37 human ships and their alien allies. On the planet's surface, Colonel Stone's Marines established secure perimeters around Volani survivor camps, while Devourer ground forces retreated into the deeper caverns they had carved. Dr. Nalaya's voice crackled through comms, tears of joy evident. "To all, vessels of the Liberation Fleet, this is Dr. Nalaya. The Devourer harvesters have stopped functioning. Our people are safe. 8 billion owe their lives to the brave souls who answered our call." As the last Devourer ships jumped into hyperspace toward the outer rim, Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the UEE's Freedom, watching human and alien ships aid the survivors on Kepler Prime. The galaxy remained vast and perilous, filled with unimaginable threats. But today, humanity had proven that sometimes the best weapon against perfect logic was perfect chaos. The distress signal had been answered. More than that, humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as the species capable of winning impossible battles by refusing to fight like anyone else.